This is Focus Nigeria. My name is Amechi Anapwe. Now, electricity remains one of the most critical drivers of economic growth, industrial development, and national prosperity. Yet, despite Nigeria's vast natural and human resources, millions of citizens and businesses continue to grapple with unreliable power supply, forcing households and industries, including businesses, to rely heavily on alternative sources of energy different from the grid. In recent years, the government, through agencies such as the Regulatory Agency and all the agencies working in the power sector, has outlined ambitious long-term plans aimed at transforming the electricity sector. Central to these plans is Nigeria's 2050 electricity target, which seeks to significantly expand generation capacity, strengthen transmission infrastructure, and ensure sustainable, affordable, and reliable electricity for the country's growing population. With projections showing Nigeria's population exceeding 350 million people by 2050, the demand for electricity is expected to rise dramatically. Meeting this demand will require large-scale thinking and investments in renewable energy, achieving an efficient energy mix and modernization of the grid. So the big question remains, can Nigeria realistically meet its 2050 electricity objectives and targets, and what must be done today to make that vision a reality? We'll be going into all this. Electricity has been a major issue in Nigeria, despite billions of dollars pumped in, outcomes not matching the investments. And what of the future? Are we getting it right? Where do we need to invest to guarantee electricity, not just for current people in Nigeria, but even for the generation unborn? We'll take a look at that, and we'll have two sets of guests. First, we'll have Dr. Michael Edioha. He is a senior energy researcher at Clean Air Task Force in the United States of America. After him, we'll welcome our other guests, Nick Agule, an energy expert, will also weigh in on the issue of pricing of electricity in Nigeria and others. So stay with us as we go into this issue that affects you directly as a consumer, a household electricity user, or an industrial user.
In Nigeria for decades. And nobody is saying that that is our daily money that is being frittered away for nothing.
Wealth being wasted.
Wasted. So now those gas can be captured, trapped in Nigeria. You don't have to import that gas. It is here. We are burning it. That is why the gasification process excites me. Trying to bring them out as commercial values that could bid on, and now we can get back to that without even so much bureaucratic red tape, and bring technology, because we don't need to provide equipment or machineries. There is already equipment and machineries across the globe. This is how you can attract those investors to come with their assets. Petron, as a very responsible organization, we looked into so many of these issues. My technical team, my economic advisory team looked at it, and we said, look, what is so difficult for us as a country to aim and project to produce 4 million barrels per day? We have some assets that have been discovered in the frontier. So what stopped us from working? We have the Niger Delta.
Like the coal money?
Yes, yes.
Though there are issues about viability and all that.
Well, you see, the thing is, if you invested billions, millions of dollars to seek for where you can have crude oil assets and possibly gas, the feasibility study, prior to that should have been able to, determine whether there's commercial viability or not. So if we have gone to invest so much money, we could have as well invested that money to build a refinery or even a gas processing plant. So those are the kind of things that we're talking about, because we have engaged ourselves in so many projects that are waste, driven. But to bring the matters to focus, Nigeria can do better. And I do not disagree with you that a refinery like Dangote, and many are coming, should be the reason why even our sales of crude oil, you know, the total volume of what we are producing today is below 2 million.
The President feels that for us to actually industrialize, the power sector must be fixed, and that is why he has taken this initiative of looking at how this grid asset management company, GAMCO, will be set up to help us to solve the problem of power once and for all, for all in this country. But of course, like I said earlier, this is work in progress. All the enabling parameters will be looked at, the laws will be looked at. A committee has already been put in place so that at the end of the day, this will be presented to the National Assembly for necessary legislation where necessary.
So much for staying with us. Let's get down to our business as we welcome our first guest, Dr. Michael Dioha, Senior Energy Researcher at Clean Air Task Force in California, USA. Thank you so much for joining us. He joins us virtually.
Good morning, Dr. Anakwe. Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
And so for electricity, Nigerians and Nigerian government must think outside the box, and it needs the contribution of everybody. If you're in diaspora, if you're at home, it is a sector that needs some emergency attention. You saw the Minister of Information there rail out the latest Nigerian government policy position on improving electricity. Grid Asset Management Company set up. We have so many new companies being set up, bulk purchasing company and all that, all in a bid to solve Nigeria's energy problem. But let's start with the long-term plan, because these appear to be short-term incremental efforts that may try to solve some of these problems in the immediacy. Let's look long-term, and let's be guided by our electricity objectives. I know of the 2050 electricity target of Nigeria. Let's get your perspective on that. Is it one that is realizable?
Yeah, thank you. So that is a goal that is realizable, definitely. But at the same time, again, it's not going to be business as usual.
Before you proceed, please tell us the attributes of that goal. What does it intend to achieve?
So from the analysis that we've done so far, which is what I'm going to focus on, which is also linked to Nigeria's development Agenda 2050 development within the longer term plan, which is what the study that we did focuses on, is focused on expanding Nigeria's electricity to get us to a GDP per capita income of about $33,000 US dollar per person. So the analysis we did was basically to look at what exactly is the amount of electricity that we need to be able to get us there, and what does that mean in terms of the supply side for the system. As far as we are concerned in the work that we've done so far, that is actually going to mean that Nigeria is going to expand its electricity capacity from business as usual to about 300% more beyond what we are generating today. And that is a big one.
We are at about between 5,000 and 10,000 megawatts per day in terms of generation.
In terms of generation, we have an installed capacity of about 14 to 15 gigawatts installed. But what we are actually having available that we're generating electricity from is between 4 to 5 gigawatts of electricity.
So we need to triple that. So talk about 15,000 megawatts by 2050 if all plans go implemented.
So the thing is not really about expanding the capacity. It is about being able to evacuate the capacity. So, as electricity is being generated, you generate, you transmit, and then you distribute. So even the capacity that we have installed right now, we really cannot even transmit that because of the limited transmission capacity we have in Nigeria. So I will argue rather that let us start by expanding our transmission network. Then we can be able to even generate fully from the installed capacity we have before we now start thinking about how do we even expand that capacity more. But for us to be able to achieve our Agenda 2050 goals, then I think that it means that both generation and transmission, we need to expand it. For the generation, we actually need to expand up to 300 gigawatts from what we found in our analysis, which is way beyond what we have installed right now. But at the same time, again, as I said, it's not really something that is just like what we'll say it is purely achievable right now. But I feel like when we put in the right policy in place, in which I'm happy to discuss more about that, we can get there. And also, we framed it in line with Nigeria's energy transition goal, which is focused on also achieving net zero by the year 2060. So why we are seeing that huge capacity is because of so much of solar deployment into the system. And we know that the capacity of solar is relatively low compared to the conventional technologies we use. And that's what kind of makes the system to be that bloated.
So it's not just about meeting the targets, but also achieving zero emissions, issues of global warming, going away from fossil fuels to clean, renewable energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what we try to look at is if Nigeria is going to achieve its development goals while at the same time also meeting up with its climate goals as it has set out in Nigeria's energy transition plan, which is to achieve net zero by the year 2060, then it simply means that we are not going to go through the business as usual of using gas alone to mash up that demand. It means that we need a diversified mix of technology. So in the study that we did, we find out that we are actually going to need about 33 to 55% of the electricity, about 37 rather to 55% of the electricity coming from solar, while we also bring in additional clean firm technologies. So when I talk about these clean firm technologies, they are technologies that are dispatchable. That means they do not depend on the weather. You can get electricity from them 24/7, such as nuclear power, as well as gas, natural gas coupled with carbon capture and storage, as well as concentrated solar power. So the combination of that alongside the solar is actually what we can use to achieve both net zero goals as well as achieving our Agenda 2050 goals.
Presently, it's more of hydro and gas thermal stations that we are depending on. Private users, including the Aso Rock Presidential Villa, going off the grid, bringing in solar. So these are not enough to expand electricity generation in Nigeria.
So the challenge is this, like when you look at the hydropower per se, firstly is that hydro resource is being affected by climate change currently. So even the capacity we assume we have, we really cannot tap that capacity fully. But Nigeria's hydro capacity, we have the large hydro, which is about 15 gigawatts. I've seen some studies that say 25 gigawatts, while the small hydro is about 3.5 gigawatts. Even when we dam the entire hydro capacity in Nigeria, it's not enough to even satisfy 1/3 of Nigeria's energy actual demand. That is when we are considering both what we call the suppressed demand, which is close to 90 megawatts at the moment. So it simply means it is not enough. Then when you think about gas, gas contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. So that is also not compatible with our climate goals. So the only way we can actually go is to keep on expanding the renewables, but renewables alone are not going to solve the problem. So we need to also combine it with these clean firm technologies. And from the study we did, we found out that nuclear power is one of the key technologies that are going to play a role in that, while we can also consider natural gas coupled with carbon capture and storage. The combination of these two is actually how we are going to get to both achieving our net zero goals while at the same time achieving our development goals, which require substantial energy demand. That is to say, we need to be achieving about 6,000 kilowatt hour per person by the year 2050. Trust me, that is enormous. Right now, Nigeria's per capita electricity consumption is about 150 kilowatt hour per person, which is nothing to write home about when we compare to our peers like South Africa or Ghana.
So, two objectives there: expand the electricity at zero emission. That's meeting our electricity targets and also meeting our environment targets. Two things we'll have to combine here. And you've listed the other sources we've been using, but they are not enough, your conclusion. When you talk about nuclear, I know it's in use in most advanced countries. Even with these countries, you hear issues of nuclear radiation leaks, nuclear accidents, and thinking of our nation, I'm thinking now about the state of our nation. I wonder how we can handle and manage issue of nuclear electricity generation. Yes, we have uranium deposits here and all that, but do we have that capacity as a nation to manage that such a sensitive industry?
That's a very good question, and I'll say it's quite a challenging one. But I want to point out first that nuclear is just one of the tools in the toolbox. There are many technologies that we can invest in. Just that our research is showing that nuclear is one of the technologies that are going to give us a least cost energy option. Now, when we look at it within our context, Nigeria, we are not saying that we are going to deploy nuclear tomorrow because Nigeria is not ready for it. And from the studies we are seeing is from 2035 to 2040, that's when we are going to get ready for nuclear. But at the same time, we have the timeline to start planning. Now, the thing about nuclear is that we are always concerned about this form of I should say, apocalyptic way of thinking about it. But for us in developing countries, we shouldn't think about nuclear with the current technologies we have around the world.
Okay, technologies have improved because you think of nuclear, remember Chernobyl in present-day Ukraine, and I'm scared stiff. So, good to hear that there are newer technologies now to make such leaks preventable, as it were.
Absolutely, yeah. When you're of the safety designs are way more advanced than the safety designs of the current conventional technologies. And then when we are looking at the capacity to be able to invest in that, we really cannot do it alone. We need to work with our international partners. We can have the vendors that are supplying it to be the ones to build, provide the upfront financing costs for us, and also operate it. Then there are also other mechanisms, like right now, you can see that the World Bank has also removed their ban on nuclear financing. So this also creates an opportunity for Nigeria to hop into the current momentum and the renaissance we are seeing in nuclear. We can start small with something like maybe 300 megawatts of a small modular reactor, and then we can make further progress in that. There are absolutely no reason, I would say, for Nigeria not to consider nuclear as one of the options in its energy mix, because it's when we have this balanced portfolio of technologies that we can actually be able to have an electricity system that is cost-effective, that can also support us to power our 2050 development goals.
In terms of cost, what are the advantages there? Because I think during Obasanjo administration, there's this rumor reports that $16 billion spent on the power sector. We can't really see the outcome. We are seeing the Aso Rock Presidential Villa spent about $10 billion in going off grid and going solar. In terms of costs, nuclear, thermal, hydro, solar, how do we achieve the mix? Because now we are talking about achieving that effective energy mix.
So there is no one single technology that is going to solve our energy problem. And that is why the research we did shows that we need to diversify and invest in all these technologies. So in terms of the cost, when you pack solar so much into the grid, because solar is weather dependent, in the night, the sun is not there, you can't generate electricity. So it simply means that you need batteries to support the solar system. But grid batteries are very expensive, and even with the decline in the cost that we are seeing with the projections, it's still not cost effective in the longer term for us to be able to power our industrial goals. So that is why we need to couple it with technologies like nuclear and so on. The thing about the nuclear power, for instance, is that the upfront cost is very high. But when you look at the life cycle cost, it is way cheaper than solar because it has higher capacity factor. That is to say, it operates most of the time. When you look at solar, as I say, in the night, it does not operate, and that also increases the cost of the system. But there are ways to go around it, as I say, that there are new financing models that are coming out for us to be able to actually get nuclear. And I think it is something that if the government is actually willing, the political will is there.
Yes.
We have countries that are better than us that have done it.
Yes, that's what the next question I wanted to throw at you. Is within government circles, are they thinking of this? Is there an option for them and all that?
That's also a good question. So that is also part of the reasons that we brought out the research that we did to show the evidence in order to guide the government as they make their decisions on which technologies, to invest in. The current energy transition plan of Nigeria have not considered nuclear as part of the mix. It has gas with carbon capture and storage, as well as solar, which are all good and great. But we are trying to say that there is additional option and additional ways to think about it. Also, the previous energy master plan that Nigeria had, nuclear power was there, but it has been removed. So I kind of feel like for the government, it is also for them to begin to look into studies like ours, as well as other evidence that are coming out, and then begin to think about how can we actually get nuclear on board as part of our energy mix.
And let's look at the regulatory environment, because this is not a technology you can just throw in like that. We have the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority. You mentioned the other one, just escaped my mind now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Atomic Energy Commission.
Yeah, the Atomic Energy Commission. Are they well placed to begin to... Of course, I know in the Nigerian economy, there are some industries and sectors and subsectors that are using nuclear-related technology. How effective are they to really regulate when we go nuclear for electricity generation?
Generally, for power sector, we have NEC that is regulating the power sector, but for nuclear specific, I think we actually have the good, our nuclear regulators are great. The thing is the political will to actually go nuclear, and we also have support from the International Atomic Energy Agency. So when we're thinking about nuclear technology, it is not like something you just do on your own. We work with international partners who also provide supervision and guidance also for us to be able to do that. As far as I'm concerned, the Nigerian Atomic Energy Agency is collaborating so much with the International Atomic Energy Agency in terms of training, in terms of capacity support, and so on. So I believe that they are well equipped to do the job. The thing is that have we actually had the political will to get that as part of our energy system? And also let us also recognize that it takes time. For you to be able to plan and prepare for a nuclear power plant and so on, it can take you up to 15 years. But the thing is that we need to start planning and start getting it as part of one of the technologies we need to bring in the future. But we need to start the job now.
Now, zero emission is the thing. Everybody, the climate change agreement, international institutions are saying go clean, go renewable, avoid emissions. We have huge coal deposits here in Nigeria, Enugu and around those places. Countries like South Africa are still generating electricity through coal. Germany, first world country in Europe, still is generating electricity through coal. So how do you balance these both? We have some international organization preaching, let's go clean, let's not use what we have here. Why the rest of the world? Even Trump wouldn't mind, you know Trump in the US, he wouldn't mind using coal and all that. So how should we weigh in and how do we place our interest in all this?
Yeah, so I think the thing is, it is not a this or that. It is not like a zero-sum game. When we are thinking about net zero, for the Western countries, it is more about emission reduction. But for a country like Nigeria, and indeed other countries in sub-Saharan African country, our net zero goal is actually a development story. As we speak today, about 80 million Nigerians do not have access to electricity, while another almost 160 million do not have access to clean cooking facilities. So when we're talking about net zero within the context of African countries, it is about how do we lift these people out of poverty while simultaneously looking at opportunities to reduce our emission intensity. So the fact is that there are going to be trade-offs and there are going to be synergies. So when I'm talking about the trade-offs, take for instance, there is this sort of solar boom right now in Nigeria where everyone is replacing their generators.
And I'm one of the beneficiaries.
So that's great. But when you look at carefully, you'll see that why you are doing that is not really about climate, it's the economics that is working out for you. Right. So in that context, you see that there's this sort of synergistic relationship between the climate goals as well as our economic goals. But when you look at something like Dangote Refinery today, it is really not bringing anything green, but it is creating thousands of jobs for Nigeria. Now, that is one of the trade-offs that we are talking about, and that is also part of our net zero story. So recognizing that our net zero story in this context is going to encompass both these sort of trade-offs as well as these synergies, it will help us to be able to go faster. So I think it is about how we articulate what net zero means for us. We shouldn't look at it is you are doing this, I'm doing this, but rather what does net zero mean for Nigeria?
So what do you think it means for Nigeria?
As I say, net zero is a development story, lifting Nigerians out of poverty, creating net zero hunger, creating net zero youth unemployment, creating net zero...
Sorry, that means we must mainstream our development agenda into the net zero objectives.
Absolutely, and that is why I was talking about the Agenda 2050, which is our development plan. How do we mainstream that into our net zero development, into our net zero agenda? Those two must work hand in hand. The challenge we have today in Africa and even in Nigeria is that we sometimes notice that these two things are not working in synergy. And that is why I'm encouraging the government to work with the ministries that are working on energy and planning alongside with the Ministry of Environment so that these goals can actually be harmonized. Any goal for Nigeria that relating to net zero that is not a development story, I'm not so sure that that goal is going to go well.
So it's left for those in the power sector, those along the corridors of power, to really think out of the box, have this global view of power and electricity dynamics, and make sure that we don't miss out in emerging technologies and new direction.
Absolutely, and also thinking about how are those emerging technologies support economic development within our context. Like when we're talking about something like electric vehicles right now, within Nigeria, how can we actually deploy electric vehicle and how is that going to help to lift people out of poverty? So the way we can be able to frame this in our own context is actually what we need. We have a lot of research that has been done in this area, but I think it's something that maybe some other time I will talk more about. But as you say clearly, it is left for those at the corridor of power, and we have research to actually guide them on this.
We have to thank you so much, Dr. Michael Dioha, Senior Energy Researcher at Clean Air Task Force, California, USA. We encourage you to do more research because I said at the beginning of this discourse, solving Nigeria's energy problem is a responsibility for us all, those in Nigeria and those in diaspora. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you also. We'll go for a break. When we come back, Dr. Dio had talked about long-term energy challenges of Nigeria. Nick Agule, another energy expert, will look at issues of low-hanging fruits. Presently, issues of pricing has become controversial in Nigeria, with the Minister of Power insisting that Nigerians should pay more to have some form of stable electricity. Some other opinion out there is saying no. Provide the electricity first before consumers will pay more. We'll dwell on that when we come back from this short break. Do stay with us.
Ụlọọrụ Independent National Electoral Commission ga-amalitekwa ọzọ idebanye aha maka ntuli aka n'obodo niile nke ha kwụsịbụrụ. Nke a bụ maka ụmụ amaala ndị nke tozuru etozu na-edebanyeghị aha ha na ndị gbara afọ 18 mgbe edebanyechara aha nke ikpeazụ site na Mọnde abalị 5 n'ọnwa Jenụwarị 2026. Ndị niile chọrọ idebanye aha ha maka ntuli aka nwere ike ịga na pọtal ndị INEC na www.tvr.inecnigeria.org jedebanye aha ha ma depụtakwa oge ma banyekwa n'ụlọ ọrụ ndị INEC ọbụla dị ha nso iji wee seta mkpịsị aka ha n'ihu ha. Ụlọ ọrụ INEC steeti n'ime obodo dị iche iche ga-emepekwa chebiri ndị chọọ ịbata ma were aka ha debanye aha onwe ha. Ndị ntụliaka debanyere aha ha na mbụ na ndị chọrọ inyefe ndebanye aha ha ebe ọzọ nwekwara ike itinye akwụkwọ maka nnọchi PVC ha furu efu ma ọ bụ nke mebiri emebi ma ọ bụ dozie ozi banyere onwe ha na ndebanye aha ntụliaka nke ugbu a. Biko chetakwanụ na idebanye aha ugboro ugboro bụ imebi iwu. Ozi a si n'aka ndị Independent National Electoral Commission INEC.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's welcome Nick Agule, energy expert who joins us virtually from United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick.
Thank you very much.
Your image appears so dark. If you can lighten it up a bit. Yes.
I think it's going to clear up. It will clear up with time.
Yes, yeah. yes.
Because the camera is warming up.
So, Nick, 1 second or one day you're in Boko, another you're in Abuja, the next one you're in Canada, and now you are in UK. You're already always on the move. Now, let's welcome you again warmly to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
That is the life of a retiree. Yeah.
We thought retirees are a bit static. They're not that dynamic, but you have proved otherwise, as it were. Interesting. So the Minister of Power is insisting that Nigeria should get ready to pay for more if they want to get guaranteed electricity. Do you stand with him on that position?
Stand with him, Tom. I am totally opposed to the Minister for Power Institution of Power in Nigeria. And I have my reasons for saying that. Because I this claim on another national network to say that in the UK where I am now, I am paying less for power than I'm paying in Abuja because now I have dual residence. So, and I mean what I'm saying.
Some connection problems.
I live in a home here.
Nick, we have to go on a break because you keep breaking and you're making very interesting points that you pay more for electricity in UK than in Nigeria. Who want to believe that? Let's go for a break and see how we can perfect our connection between London and our studio. Do stay with us.
Nigeria for decades. And nobody is saying that that is our daily money that is being frittered away for nothing.
Wealth being wasted.
Wasted. So now those gas can be captured, trapped in Nigeria. You don't have to import that gas. It is here. We are burning it. That is why the gasification process excites me. Trying to bring them out as commercial values that could bid on, but now we can get back to that without even so much bureaucratic red tape, and bring technology, because we don't need to provide equipment or machineries. There is already equipment and machineries across the globe. This is how you can attract those investors to come with their assets. Petron, as a very responsible organization, we looked into so many of these issues. My technical team, my economic advisory team looked at it, and we said, look, what is so difficult for us as a country to aim and project to produce 4 million barrels per day? We have some assets that have been discovered in the frontier. So what stopped us from working? We have the Niger Delta.
Like the coal money?
Yes.
Though there are issues about viability and all that.
Well, you see, the thing is, if you invested billions, millions of dollars to seek for where you can have crude oil assets, and possibly gas. The feasibility study, prior to that should have been able to, determine whether there's commercial viability or not. So if we have gone to invest so much money, we could have as well invested that money to build a refinery or even a gas processing plant. So those are the kind of things that we're talking about, because we have engaged ourselves in so many projects that are waste, driven. But to bring the matters to focus, Nigeria can do better. And I do not disagree with you that a refinery like Dangote, and many are coming, should be the reason why even our sales of crude oil, the total volume of what we're producing today is below 2 million.
There's one tool, very basic tool that is used in homicide investigation. It's called luminol oil. Luminol oil was invented about in the 1925. So it is an essential tool that is used in homicide investigation. So I asked him, what's the number of luminoils you have, and how do you use luminoils? He said, which oil am I talking about?
Is it body cream?
I said, which oil am I talking about? I couldn't hold my breath. So you see, the tools are not there. Modern tools for policing are not there. It's a critical thing that the Nigerian police force this IG has to look into. He must have to recommend to government that we must have to have
and carry out advocacy.
We must have to have a special unit that looks after the provision of tools. It happens all over the world. In the U.S. police, we have a department. That department is responsible. There's a commission responsible for kitting law enforcement. The security apparatus, the security institutions in the country have been ignored, totally ignored. The emphasis has been taking care of the political class. That is where it has been, and it's unfortunate. We have enough resources to take care of our security apparatus in the country here, and it will be at par with international best practices. It should be the same, like around the world. I told you my visit not too long ago to the Inspector General of Police in Ghana. Ghana, our neighbor, 45 minutes flight from here. That was extreme professionalism. The kitting of the officers. You saw authority and respect. The kitting.
Yeah.
Look at our policemen. I will urge the Inspector General of Police to bring back discipline in the police force. Bring back discipline in the police force. If I went to visit the Comptroller General of Customs, I saw sizable discipline, very serious discipline. I saw how the officers carry themselves. Go to police headquarters. You see a junior officer greeting, how now? How now day? You see, in a very lousy manner. There's no professionalism in that. I'm urging this General Police, imbibe that professionalism. When a junior officer sees a senior officer, there should be some decorum. There should be.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Good news, we have a smooth connection between us here and Nick Agule in London, who's joining us virtually. Thank you so much for staying with us. So what you're saying, in effect, is that UK citizens are already paying more for electricity than we are doing in Nigeria, especially Abuja.
No, UK citizens are paying less. So what I'm saying, I'm not reading it off any newspaper or any magazine. I am living it. I have a home here in London. I have a home in Nigeria now as I prepare for my eventual return to Nigeria. What I'm paying in Nigeria, and when I say what I'm paying for Nigeria is that in the house I have in Nigeria, I rely on AEDC and my solar system. So if I add what I'm paying to AEDC plus what I'm paying to this from the solar to give me 24 hours electricity, is far more than what I'm paying here in London.
Is it not what the Power Minister is saying, that we need to pay more to have that stable electricity guaranteed?
No.
So when you remove your solar system and depend solely on the grid, and you add that cost to what you're paying to the grid, the minister is talking about guaranteeing security, electricity supply.
Okay, so this minister, he is going to be in office shortly for 3 years. And all that this minister has been speaking about is money, tariff, pay more. Pay more from what? Pay more from 5,000 megawatts. 5,000 megawatts. You see, the problem of this minister is that this minister does not understand that Nigeria's electricity problem is not tariff. Nigeria's electricity problem is that we simply don't have enough electricity to go around. 5,000 megawatts for 250 million people is the poorest you can ever find. That level of energy poverty is topping the league of energy poverty in the world. Because I always give this example. You look at the United Arab Emirates, where the president came back from, before he's now coming to London. There are 12 million people there, and they have 45,000 megawatts of electricity. Has this minister bothered to ask himself, why would the United Arab Emirates give 45,000 megawatts of electricity to 12 million people, and I, Minister for Power in Nigeria, I'm giving only 5,000 megawatts to 250 million people? So for me, the appointment of this minister was a mismatch. President Tinubu needed to appoint an engineer, a power sector engineer, especially the one that has an international experience. Because people who have spent all their lives in Nigeria, they think that 5,000 megawatts is normal, because that is what they have ever known. You need to bring somebody, an engineer from, say, UAE, who is part of a system that is delivering 45,000 megawatts to 12 million people. Immediately that person comes to Nigeria and sees that we're giving 5,000 megawatts, he will know immediately that the problem here is output, not tariff. And the reason why we're having this output problem, as I always advise President Tinubu, is that the 2013 privatization of electricity sector in Nigeria is flawed, totally flawed. And until President Tinubu goes back to that 2013 privatization and overhauls it, we are going to continue to have this problem. All the subsequent governments after President Jonathan, which is President Buhari's 8 years, and President Tinubu near 3 years now, have not been able to unlock power in Nigeria because that privatization is pinning Nigerians down. And I can explain briefly what the issues are. If you look at what happened in telecoms, we had a government company that was providing telephone called NITEL. And NITEL's tariff was far higher than what MTN and Co are charging today. Far higher. In fact, under NITEL, telephone was a status symbol. You needed to be a big man to have a phone. Even the Minister for Communication during that time said that telephone was not for the poor. How did that privatization unlock it? The privatization was done well. The licenses were given to operators who already were in the telecom sector who had the money, who had the experience, who had the expertise, who had the technology. And so immediately MTN, Airtel, Econet, and all of that landed, they immediately started building the infrastructure. Remember, when MTN and Co came, they didn't complain about tariffs. Immediately they landed, they started building infrastructure.
Yes, we saw fiber optic being laid, we saw base stations, we saw even submarine sea cable linking Nigeria with Europe and all that.
Exactly, exactly. So immediately they now built the infrastructure, they increased telephone availability from the 500,000 lines that NITE was offering to over 220 million active lines as we speak today. And because of that scale, even though they are charging a fraction of what NITE was charging, they are making a whole lot more money.
So the difference, because they have put two things on the table. The 2013 privatization that led to the emergence of the discos, as we have it, and what Obasanjo did, 2001, and all that. So he brought in people that invested money into this sector. But for the discos, you say we are not seeing that?
No. So you see, the problem is this. When President Goodluck Jonathan now presided over the power sector privatization, and for me, I'm always saying in my mind that we were very unlucky. It would have been better if President Obasanjo had privatized power, because power is more important than even telephone. Because you will discover that MTN and Co now, at every base station, they have a generating set. And that is because the power sector is not doing well.
So Obasanjo should have prioritized electricity reforms rather than telecoms reforms?
Yes. If President Obasanjo had privatized, I mean, it would have been better if he had privatized the two. But let's say he could only privatize one. Then it would have been better for us if he had privatized power. Because if he had privatized power, even MTN now will be faring better. Because they will not need those generating sets at their base stations. You know, when you have stable power, you don't need generators. You know, there was a time that Heathrow Airport, which is just a few kilometers from where I am now, went out of power because the power substation that was supplying them caught fire. And there was no backup power, no backup at Heathrow. Heathrow shut down. So that is what you do when you have stable power. You don't even bother with any other thing. So it would have been better for the MTNs that we even had power. But now what happened in Jonathan's time in comparison to what Obasanjo did in 2001 is that in 2013, when President Jonathan now privatized power, first he privatized generation and then he went and privatized distribution. He jumped over transmission. By doing that alone, that privatization was dead on arrival. How do I mean? Because a transmission that is constrained with funding from government means it is not a bottleneck, because the privatized generation cannot even increase generation because there is no transmission to carry it. And of course, a privatized distribution, they are waiting on transmission to deliver power to them. And this transmission that is in a coma can't deliver power to them. Some of the system collapses, the national grid collapses that we see is generation trying to push a bit more power into transmission. So that was the first mistake that the Jonathan government made by privatizing generation and then privatizing distribution, but leaving transmission in the hands of government and with no funding.
The idea is that it was too sensitive to be let out to private hands, and that maybe it may not be profitable, and so government must retain ownership to continue to plug in funds.
Well, I hear people make that argument. And when people make that argument, I say that telephone is more sensitive than power. Power is about cables. You are running transmission cables from a power station, bringing power to Abuja. How sensitive is that compared to telephone? Did we not hear recently that they tapped the National Security Advisor's phone?
That's an allegation that was made.
That phone they tapped is a private sector phone. Is either he using MTN, Airtel, T2, or Glo, and they tapped it. So how can we give telephone to the private sector? And we are saying running wires all over the place is too sensitive to give to the private sector. It doesn't make any meaning.
So
all over the world, including here,
let's come
here
back
in the UK, we are speaking. Transmission is in the hands of the private sector. And what has happened?
Efficiency,
right?
Yes. So let's come back to the Nigerian situation, because the argument of the power minister is that you can't ask people to generate when you're not operating cost-reflective tariff. That because of the multi-year tariff structure that we have is still heavily subsidized. That except you remove this subsidy and make that sector attractive for investors to come, then new people won't come to generate more.
Okay, so let me just tell Nigerians what has been happening. In 2013, and I must always go back to that because that is the problem, that is the genesis of our power sector problems. And until President Tinubu goes to unlock it, it's not going to happen.
You have to be brief, please, in 2 minutes. You have time.
In 2013, we had only one NEPA. By then, the NEPA was known as Power Holding Company of Nigeria. One managing director, one team. They were delivering 7,000 megawatts to Nigerians. As we speak today, that privatization brought in 47 entities. It was 46 before they now added GAMCO. You know, they added GAMCO last week or 2 weeks ago, making it 47 entities. These 47 entities are all generating cost, but they are giving us 5,000 megawatts, less than what one NEPA was giving us. These are the costs that the minister wants to recover from only 5,000 megawatts. The minister knows that if the operators first put in money, so there are two things the minister needs to do. The minister needs to advise the president to bring in the private sector in transmission, to expand transmission from the current capacity to at least like 25,000 megawatts. The second thing the minister needs to do is that the minister needs to advise the president to overhaul the privatization of the DISCOs. There are DISCOs that were giving licenses to distribute power to 4 states that their share capital is $3,500. I have the records from CSC. I paid as a citizen of Nigeria to get their capital structures. $3,500 to distribute power in 4 states is a joke because they don't have the money. The DISCOs will tell you that, oh, they are stealing our power. They are stealing their power because in the modern days, you need to invest to prevent theft of your power. As I'm sitting here, the power cables supplying power to this my house are buried deep in the ground. I have no access to them. If the power cables were floating overhead, UK citizens will steal that electricity.
Because
so
the opportunity
is about investment. It's about investment. You need to first invest, bury all the cables, because another thing is that you know that rainy season has come now. Because the cables are overhead, one simple breeze now, power has gone. Because the cables are overhead. But if the cables were insulated deep down in the ground, even if it is raining, you will still be supplying power 24/7 and making the money. How can they be waiting to collect tariffs to go and do such an investment? These guys are jokers. They are pretenders. We all know that these licenses were issued on political patronage. So for President Tinubu to unlock this thing, he needs to overhaul that sector. And look, if those distribution licenses are awarded to the Siemens, the Eons, the Manitobas,
would they show interest?
EDF,
showing interest is another issue there. Would they likely show interest?
A market of 250 million people, why would they not show interest? It's the same way. Why did the MTN, you see, when MTN wanted to come, there were like Vodafone and all of that. They didn't show interest. And later on, they saw MTN milking money. And they wanted
those that were doing CDMA.
Exactly. So look, if you have a consumer base of 250 million people, Nigeria's population is the 6th largest in the world. 6th largest. There is no investor that is going to ignore that. Look, we should not be analyzing whether they will show interest. Can President Tinubu put up these distribution licenses back in the market and let us see whether global power sector companies will not show interest?
We'll have to leave it here.
But the only way we can see
yes, your argument is that the DISCOs must invest and reap later. because apparently they have not invested and have been reaping. And you gave the instance of the telecom sector.
If you want to make money from a hotel,
put in billions
if you
of
want
dollars.
to make money from a hotel,
yes,
you must first build the hotel before you start charging room rate.
Okay.
How can you, without building the hotel, and every day you are complaining about, oh, people are not paying the right room rate?
Okay.
Who does that?
Okay.
You know,
we have to thank you so much. And we like the passion behind your interest in Nigeria's electricity sector because it's all tied to our development. We can achieve that rapid industrialization and development without adequate supply of power. Thank you so much, Nick Agule, energy expert. We hope to see you back in Abuja soon.
Thank you so much, Amechi.
And I hope you don't run from London to Canada before you come back.
Yeah, I will still go in the summer. I'm doing agriculture.
Okay.
We're trying to go into agriculture, so I will still go back in the summer. Yeah.
Good to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you also for being part of it as we come to the end of the discourse today. My name is Amechi Anapwe. Have a good time.
Research should be cut off.
He only cares about making rice. He has no time or energy to be a good husband. But still, he is a really good man.
That's painful.
Once you find the natural male sterile plant, go with the sun right away.
Go with the sun right away?
That's right, from north to south.
We want to be just like you, to grow hybrid rice and feed the entire world. I just need a little pressure. What? Stop it. Flowering days are over.
Calm down.
Just keep looking. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new